Throughout his presidency, Donald Trump has been a figure known for his strong political views and unconventional leadership style. One of the most striking aspects of his tenure has been his foreign policy, particularly his relationships with major world powers like China and Ukraine. Initially, Trump was vocal in criticizing China, especially during the heated trade war between the two nations. At the beginning of his presidency, he didn't hesitate to call China a trade manipulator and blamed them for the massive trade imbalance between the two countries. But interestingly, after implementing tariffs and escalating the trade conflict with China, Trump began to shift his stance towards Xi Jinping, calling him a friend. So what changed in this relationship? What led Trump, who was once a harsh critic of China, to later call Xi a friend? And then there's the case of Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's president, who was once a comedian before becoming the leader of a nation embroiled in war. This has led Trump to occasionally label him as a comedian-turned-president. But with the ongoing war in Ukraine, will Trump continue to see Zelensky as a political joke, or will his perception of this leader shift as the war continues to drag on? Let's dive deep into the dynamics of Trump's relationships with these key international figures, and how his perspectives on them may evolve as we approach 2025. Before the trade war between the US and China kicked off, there wasn't much to suggest that Trump and Xi Jinping shared a particularly special relationship. However, that changed dramatically once Trump decided to impose tariffs on Chinese goods, a move he justified as necessary to address the trade imbalance between the two countries. As a leader focused on protecting American economic interests, Trump took bold actions to pressure China into changing its trade policies, and he didn't shy away from criticizing China for what he saw as unfair trade practices. At the start of the trade war, it was clear Trump viewed China as a major economic rival and a nation that needed to be held accountable. However, over time, as the trade negotiations advanced and certain deals were reached, Trump started referring to Xi Jinping as his friend. This shift was intriguing because it marked a significant departure from his earlier harsh rhetoric. What caused this transition from a fierce trade adversary to a diplomatic ally? Trump's perspective on Xi Jinping began to evolve as the two leaders reached several trade agreements, and Trump recognized that maintaining a cooperative relationship with China was crucial for the long-term benefit of the U.S. economy. Trump even began praising Xi for his strong leadership and his ability to maintain stability in China, despite the ongoing tensions in trade. So, as we approach 2025, how will this relationship evolve? With China's growing influence globally and the unresolved issues between the US and China over trade, technology, and security, will Trump continue to view Xi as a key partner, or will he return to a more adversarial stance? This is a relationship that will continue to be central to US foreign policy in the coming years, and the outcome will have significant global implications. For Trump, NATO has always been a contentious issue. Throughout his presidency, he repeatedly criticized NATO and its member states, claiming that the alliance was freeloading off of America's protection without adequately contributing to the shared defense budget. His stance on NATO became a focal point of his foreign policy, particularly during his early years in office, when he demanded that NATO members increase their financial contributions to the alliance if they wanted to continue receiving U.S. military support. Trump argued that NATO was outdated and no longer served America's best interests, especially as the U.S. shouldered the bulk of the financial and military burden. He even threatened to withdraw from the alliance if other member nations did not start paying their fair share. This led to some tense moments between the U.S. and its NATO allies, particularly European nations, who were frustrated by Trump's blunt approach. Will Trump continue to maintain this position in 2025, especially as global security concerns like the war in Ukraine remain unresolved? NATO will likely need to adapt to the shifting global landscape and address the growing security challenges posed by Russia and other geopolitical threats. While NATO member countries have made efforts to increase their defense spending, is it enough to convince Trump to continue supporting the alliance? And as the U.S. faces its own internal divisions, can NATO continue to serve as a strong strategic partner to Washington, or will Trump further distance the U.S. from the alliance? Volodymyr Zelensky's rise to power is one of the most unexpected stories in modern politics. Before becoming the president of Ukraine, Zelensky was a comedian, well known for his work on television and in comedic films. His transition from the entertainment industry to the highest office in Ukraine was a dramatic shift, and it caught many by surprise. As the war in Ukraine broke out, Zelensky became the face of resistance, leading his country through one of the most difficult and protracted conflicts in Europe. However, for Trump, Zelensky has been a more complicated figure. Trump has occasionally referred to him as a comedian-turned-president, expressing doubts about his ability to lead in the midst of such a crisis. While many around the world have praised Zelensky for his leadership and courage in the face of war, Trump has often remained skeptical, viewing Zelensky's background in comedy as a potential disadvantage when it comes to the serious responsibilities of a national leader. But with the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, will Trump's perception of Zelensky change? As the war continues to affect Europe and the broader international community, can Trump continue to dismiss Zelensky as a political joke, or will he come to see him as a legitimate leader facing extraordinary challenges? If Trump returns to the White House in 2025, will he re-evaluate Ukraine's role in global geopolitics and approach his relationship with Zelensky differently? 2025 will be a pivotal year for U.S. politics, with Trump facing several new challenges. After a contentious 2024 election, Trump will be up against a shifting political landscape. The Republican Party will have to grapple with its internal divisions, as new voices rise to challenge Trump's influence. On the other hand, the Democratic Party will also seek to strengthen its position, particularly as new global crises emerge. Trump's foreign policy, which has focused heavily on America First, will be put to the test as the global landscape changes. From ongoing conflicts like the war in Ukraine to rising tensions with China and Russia, how will Trump adapt his approach to foreign relations? Will he continue to prioritize the economic interests of the U.S., or will he need to reconsider his positions on key alliances and international cooperation? Domestically, Trump will also face a highly polarized political environment, with new battles over economic policy, social issues, and national security. Can Trump maintain his hold over his base while managing the growing challenges of international diplomacy and global security? The outcome of the 2024 election will set the stage for these critical decisions in 2025. One of the most significant international challenges Trump will face in 2025 is the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. When the war broke out, many global leaders rallied behind Ukraine, offering military aid, humanitarian support, and economic sanctions against Russia. But Trump's stance toward the war has always been more complex, and this complexity will continue to shape his approach to foreign policy. Throughout the conflict, Trump has been wary of entangling the U.S. too deeply in Ukraine's struggles. His America First policy has always emphasized minimizing American involvement in overseas conflicts, particularly those that don't directly benefit U.S. interests. This was evident during his presidency, where he frequently criticized NATO and European nations for not contributing their fair share to defense costs, and even questioned U.S. military involvement in international conflicts like Syria and Afghanistan. So, as the war in Ukraine persists, how will Trump navigate his position on the conflict moving into 2025? Will his previous reluctance to offer substantial support to Zelensky and Ukraine shift as the war continues to impact Europe and the global security landscape? There are several factors at play here. First, Trump's base is likely to continue valuing his America First approach, which means Trump will have to tread carefully if he seeks to increase U.S. involvement in Ukraine. The American public, especially after years of military interventions in the Middle East, has shown signs of war weariness. However, as the conflict in Ukraine has increasingly been seen as a proxy war between Russia and the West, there's a growing sense among U.S. allies that Ukraine's survival is a matter of global stability, not just regional concerns. In the context of 2025, the war in Ukraine may evolve into something more than just a European crisis. As Russia faces mounting economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation, will Trump continue to view this as an opportunity to assert his own brand of foreign policy, which seeks to secure American interests above all else? Or will the shifting geopolitical landscape and international pressure force him to take a more active role in supporting Ukraine? Zelensky, meanwhile, has proven himself to be a resilient and charismatic leader. His ability to rally the world behind Ukraine, despite the overwhelming odds, has earned him international admiration. But will Trump, who has frequently dismissed foreign leaders he deems to be political outsiders, adjust his view on Zelensky in 2025? Trump has often called the Ukrainian president a comedian-turned-leader, but with the war showing no signs of ending, will Trump start to view him as a true leader? More importantly, will Trump feel compelled to offer Ukraine more assistance if it aligns with his broader geopolitical goals? The dynamic here will be shaped not only by the progress or lack thereof in the war but also by the broader international response. As European countries, particularly NATO members, continue to send aid and support to Ukraine, will Trump be able to continue maintaining an aloof position, or will he be drawn into the conflict as a way to reclaim influence over global security dynamics? The other consideration is how Zelensky's leadership might affect U.S.-Ukraine relations in the long term. While Trump may still criticize Zelensky's theatrical background, it's clear that as the war grinds on, the narrative around Zelensky will evolve. As a leader at the helm of a country at war, his international stature will likely continue to rise. Trump, being a strategic politician, may eventually recognize the importance of fostering a more collaborative relationship with Zelensky to ensure that Ukraine remains a strategic partner in countering Russian influence in Europe and beyond. Looking ahead, 2025 will force Trump to balance his isolationist tendencies with the realities of a global crisis. The war in Ukraine isn't just about Ukraine, it's about the shifting power balance between Russia, the West, and the emerging geopolitical challenges of the future. Trump will have to navigate these challenges carefully if he hopes to maintain America's leadership on the world stage while keeping his base satisfied with his foreign policy priorities. As we look ahead to 2025, the global political landscape is already set to become even more complex. With Trump eyeing a potential return to the White House, the U.S. will be at a crossroads regarding its place in the world. His relationships with key figures like Xi Jinping, Zelensky, and NATO will play pivotal roles in shaping the future of U.S. foreign policy and its global strategy. The big question heading into 2025 is whether Trump will continue with the America First foreign policy approach he championed during his presidency, or if he will shift his strategy in response to the evolving international challenges that are emerging. His approach to China will be particularly crucial. While he has previously forged a seemingly solid relationship with Xi Jinping, this relationship will continue to be tested as China flexes its economic and military power in ways that directly impact the U.S. For Trump, the challenge will be to maintain a balance between competing with China economically and ensuring that the U.S. doesn't get pulled into unnecessary conflicts that could damage America's standing in the world. Trump's handling of Zelensky will also be a critical element of his foreign policy in 2025. While Trump may continue to be skeptical of Zelensky's leadership, the international narrative surrounding Ukraine will only grow stronger as the war continues. How Trump positions himself in relation to Ukraine will have major consequences for U.S.-Europe relations, especially as European countries increasingly align themselves with NATO and the broader Western security framework. Will Trump continue to advocate for an America First stance and limit U.S. involvement, or will the geopolitical pressures of 2025 push him into a more proactive role in supporting Ukraine's efforts to stave off Russian aggression? Another significant aspect of Trump's foreign policy evolution in 2025 will be his relationship with NATO. During his presidency, Trump frequently criticized NATO for being too reliant on the U.S. and not contributing enough to its defense budget. As global security challenges become more pronounced, Trump may have to decide whether to reinvest in NATO and restore U.S. leadership within the alliance, or if his stance on NATO will remain largely unchanged, as he focuses on reducing American military commitments abroad. In 2025, Trump will likely face new global crises that will test the very foundation of his foreign policy approach. The ongoing wars in the Middle East, the rise of new military powers, and the threats posed by climate change and economic instability will force Trump to reassess his America First doctrine. But the question remains, will Trump embrace international cooperation as part of his strategy, or will he continue to double down on isolationism? Additionally, how Trump responds to shifting alliances and emerging threats will be key to his ability to navigate a highly volatile world. As the global balance of power evolves, Trump may find that maintaining a traditional approach to diplomacy won't be enough. The U.S. will have to contend with new challenges from rival powers like Russia and China, as well as the rise of new global issues such as cybersecurity, environmental crises, and trade wars. Trump's ability to adapt to these changes will determine whether he can continue to be a dominant force in world politics, or if he will be sidelined as other world leaders step up to fill the leadership void. One thing is certain, 2025 will mark a critical juncture for Trump's political legacy. Whether he's back in office or serving as a key influencer, his approach to foreign policy will shape America's position in the world for years to come. His relationships with leaders like Xi Jinping and Zelensky will continue to be scrutinized, as they represent the ideological battle between nationalism and globalism that is defining the modern political era. How Trump navigates these complex relationships will not only determine the future of U.S. foreign policy, but will also set the tone for the international order in the years ahead. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the latest political analyses and updates on global affairs. Thanks for watching.